What's up everybody, Brian Earhart here again with Team Discraft. You're watching another episode of Level Up. Today, we are gonna talk about the ins and outs of one of my favorite shots in disc golf, the roller. Let's get into it. So, a lot of people have asked me this question, why do I need to learn how to throw a roller? I have three pretty big selling points that I wanna bring up to you here. Number one, if you are a backhand only player and you really don't want to throw forehands, or maybe you're still learning the forehand, a backhand roller is a phenomenal complement to a backhand turnover in the sense that a backhand roller can really turn corners much more sharply than a backhand turnover, and it mimics the flight of a forehand that skips much more similarly. Next, if you play a lot of holes in the woods and there's a lot of staggered trees in the fairways, a roller is a really good way of, number one, missing the canopy of the trees since you're laying it on the ground. Number two, the profile of the disc is now thinned pretty significantly, so your chances of missing the trunks of the trees also goes up. And then number three, if you hit one of these trees in the fairway with your roller, you won't get those hard kicks off the middle of the tree trunks like air shots do that kick you way off the fairway. You tend to hit the trunk of the tree and stay very close to it. So it's a little bit safer of an option as well. Last but not least, if you play a lot of holes maybe on traditional golf courses and there's a lot of short grass and hard ground, rollers, once mastered, can give you some of the longest distance shots that you've ever thrown. So let's jump into every type of roller that we have and I'll show you how to do it. So I've sold you on the roller. Hopefully you're bought in now. I want to now tell you how the rollers are supposed to behave. It's actually a lot more simple than you might think. If you have discs in your bag that are understable or overstable, that flip or fade, the rollers are gonna do the exact same thing. So say for an understable disc, if you have one that really likes to flip over, maybe you throw it for hyzer flip straight shots or turnovers, once you roll it on the ground, it's gonna behave the exact same way. If a disc likes to flip hard, it's gonna continue to do that until it's flat on its back right here. This is good for those rollers that turn in the opposite direction of your hyzer. On the other side, for overstable discs, if you have discs that like to fade really hard out of your hand for air shots, they're gonna do the same thing for rollers. So even if you lay them down pretty vertical right away, they're still gonna wanna fight out of the roller and land flat on their stomach here. So you can use different types of stabilities and speeds of discs to control the shot shape that you throw your roller with. The big variable though that does change the flip point or the fade of a roller is how hard it hits the ground. So if you throw a really seamless roller that hits the ground like an airplane hitting a runway, it's gonna maintain that speed throughout the flight and behave very similarly to an air shot. If you throw a sky roller where you're shooting it way up high and having it hit the ground with a lot of force, it's gonna slow the disc's path down a little bit and it's gonna change the stability ever so slightly. So those are the variables to keep in mind. A couple other details you can pay attention to are actually just the lay of the land that you're on. This is part of course prep for tournaments or any sort of situation you're in. Check the ground that you're wanting to roll on. Does it have big patches of clover? Is the grass really thick? Did it just rain the night before? Is the ground really soft? All of these variables play into how your roller is going to behave. Okay, so for a flip roller, we're gonna use something a bit more understable, and the big thing to take note of here with a flip roller is it's a lot of trust in your equipment. You have to take something that you know how to turn out of your hand, whether it's hyzer flip to flat or flat to turn. When it comes to shot shaping, we wanna make sure that we know how quick we want the disc to flip over on its back. So the way we control that is by how steep of a cut angle we hit the ground with. So if we want it to flip quickly, we'll throw it and have it hit the ground on more of a vertical angle. If we want it to prolong that flipping point, we'll hit it on a bit more of a 45-degree angle. Be careful though, when trying to throw a flip roller you want to flip over. If you get too much cut angle, it will never come back and it'll go the other way. These are really good for playing in the woods where there's some really tight gaps to hit and low ceilings. So for this situation, we're gonna do a little geometry here. and pick the point in the sky, in the flight, that's gonna be the highest and farthest out where the disc is gonna go. We're gonna send our weight in that direction initially. I think that's the biggest mistake I see people make with rollers, is they run straight and then they try to throw the disc outside to get the roller to happen. With a flip roller, we're swinging it pretty far to the outside. So pick the spot, send your weight in that direction, and trust that you know your equipment's flip point to hit the ground where you want it to hit. Okay, so for the power roller, there's a little less movement that you have to worry about in the shot. We're not necessarily throwing a disc out flat and trusting its flip point, trusting the angle on the ground. The power roller is a much more stable disc, usually done with a stable distance driver, to achieve a very powerful roller with a much more direct line. We're not necessarily hitting the ground, standing up, and then flipping over. The power roller is much more direct, and if you have very short grass and hard ground, these can go an extremely long way just due to the nature of this disc. The biggest issue that I see for players throwing this type of roller is the fact that they might throw nose up by default. A lot of players love to attack the disc at a downward angle, have their elbow kind of collapse inwards, and then flip their wrist at the last second. And it really doesn't work well for these types of power rollers. We have no room for nose up in this shot. So the big thing I want to tell you if you want to practice this is if you know that your elbow likes to kind of pull really close to your body and throw those nose up shots, first need to get your elbow off your side and pretend like your forearm is parallel with your shoulders. This way, when we lean back into the shot, we can roll over the shot this way. Whereas a flip roller, we can be kind of hunched over. We can even hyzer flip our disc into roller. Body positioning for a power roller in regards to the tilt of your spine and the positioning of your elbow is much more important than that of a flip roller. All right, so we've covered the backhand roller inside and out. I want to finish this episode talking about a really useful scramble tool, and that is the forehand roller. We normally don't throw forehand flip rollers. Some people do throw them, but the more common roller that we see people throw with a forehand grip is more vertical up top here. So because we're gonna land the disc more vertical, we can throw a bit more overstable of a disc because we don't have to worry about hitting with so much cut angle to flip it over. For scrambles, I really like using a zone as a slow overstable approach disc. Very solid forehand roller for scrambles. And even if you get closer to the basket, don't be afraid to grab a putter and lay it on the angle you want and let it curl around the pin. All right, so let's recap everything. We covered the backhand flip roller, we covered the backhand power roller, and we covered the forehand roller. For all three of these different types of shots, you have to know your equipment inside and out. There's so many variables to take into consideration here, including the lay of the land that you're throwing the roller on. Take all of these things into consideration, and then also take your equipment to the field and experiment with the roller. This is a shot that a lot of people don't put enough time into experimenting with, and if you do that, you will have the lines down to throw any type of roller out on the course, and it's gonna really benefit you along the way. Thanks again for tuning in. Leave us a comment down below with your favorite roller disc to throw, and also let us know any ideas you have for any future episodes we can do. We'll see you next time.